Bash, standing for Born Again Shell. Assuming you already know what a shell is, which is basically where you can type commands into your computer to prompt it to do certain things. In this video, I am going to be going through most of, if not all of the basic system and OS baseline stuffs that you need to know as a Mac OS or Linux user. So if you are a PowerShell user, go download Linux to your machine. Recently, I've actually been on an entire journey trying to learn as much as I possibly can about the terminal and Linux. Yeah, I know. I don't touch grass anymore. I'm going to start out with commands because that will make the rest of the video way more easier to understand. So each of the slashes that you see inside the terminal represent a path. So every single slash you see is actually called a directory, which is also referred to as almost like a folder. If you open up your Finder or your file system, you'll see a bunch of different folders. That's basically those slashes. It's replicating folders within your computer. There are a ton of commands when it comes to the terminal. So obviously I'm not going through them all, but these are some of the ones that I think you must know, and you're probably going to use 300 billion times. First up, the best one that I use 24/7, ls-l or ls-la. ls basically this binary that lists all of the files within the current directory that you stand in. If you do ls-la, it lists all the files, including the hidden ones in that current directory. And then also it shows date and time information as well as permissions, which we'll get to later in the video. This is important when you're trying to figure out or troubleshoot why something might not execute. You might have to check the permissions or disk space error, which brings me to pwd, which shows you the current path that you're currently in. You'll also use cd, which stands for change directory, which basically means you're going to shift from where you currently are to another area in your computer. cd // will take you backwards one. Then we get into a little bit more technical kind of commands, which mv comes in, which is how you move files and directories. So mv, the path, and then where you want to move it to. This will also be a rename function as well. So if you specify a file and then you specify a file name that doesn't exist in the current directory, it will rename that file to whatever you specified it. The next one is also cp, which stands for copying. If you wanted to copy a directory, you have to add in the -r flag, which stands for recursive, because you have to iterate through all of the files and all of the directories within that directory in order to copy that directory from one place to the other. Then getting into rm. This one's dangerous, guys. I want you guys to preface this. Rm is a dangerous function because this is the delete function. Guys, I can't preface this enough. This is not a Windows machine. So as soon as you type in rm and you hit enter, that John is gone. It will not prompt you and say, do you want to delete this? Are you sure that you want to delete this? Now that John's gone. Same with directories. You have to do rm-r. There's also rm-rf, which F stands for force. Again, another very dangerous game to play. Find is for finding specific directory names and file names, and then also using grep to find words within those files. History is kind of cool because it displays the last X amount of commands that you called. So if you maybe called something in the past couple of days, you forget what kind of command you ran, don't worry, you got history, so you can go back, snipe all of the commands that you ran from ChatGPT. Just kidding. Watch out for ChatGPT commands, bruh. I deleted a whole SQL database because of ChatGPT commands. Don't abuse ChatGPT. So getting into process management, I guess they're like also functions, but they're more nerd functions. PsAux basically shows you the current running processes and can show you the PIDs kill or kill -9. Kill -9 almost forces it, and then you specify the PID of which application you want to kill. So most of the time in terminal, if I'm using this, I usually will just kill all the processes or apps that I'm not using. And then there's also top and htop, which gives you an overview of your computer's runtime, how much your processor's working, it gives you all these analytics. Basically Analytics Monitor, but way cooler because you can see it in the freaking terminal. But getting into the monitoring and logs section, we have df-h, which shows an overview of all of your disk space and what has been used up within the disk of your PC or your volumes that are connected disk drives. DU will show disk usage of a certain application, which is pretty useful for when you are trying to figure out some sort of issue in your computer or maybe a disk fill up error. You can also use things, I actually discovered this recently. You could do tail -f var/log/syslog, which prints out the logs of your machine. And this is really helpful for debugging if you have some sort of computer error. This basically prints out the system logs within your computer, and tail prints out the last items within it. There's also things like pip install and pip apt install, sudo pip install, sudo pip apt install, which basically just installs packages to your computer. Be careful though, because I know I've had some teachers that have been on my ass for pip installing in their environments. Don't worry guys, I enjoyed school, guys. This gets into one of my favorite parts right here. Permissions. This is one of my favorite parts, but I want to also say kind of a difficult part. Kind of, not really. When you hit ls-l, you will see to the left, all the way to the left, there are a bunch of letters and dashes. The leading D in the entire thing stands for directory. If it's a dash, then it's usually a file. Then there is 3 sets of RWX. The first set is for user, the second set is for group, and the last set is for other. User is me, the one who's using the machine that logs into it. Group is everybody else inside the environment, and other is everyone else. If that makes sense, I know that can be confusing. R stands for read, W stands for write, and X stands for execute. I hope you guys understand what those 3 things mean. It's okay if you don't though, trust. To change these, you're gonna need chmod or chmod or whatever you want to call it, chmod. Okay, so you would specify change mod and then UGO and then plus or minus, or you could do A, which stands for all. Networking, another one. This one could be a 25-minute video on its own, but I'm gonna speed through all of the things that I can try and think of. Ifconfig gives you the output of all of the IP linkage that your computer or machine has. Hostname -I also returns the IP of the device. So if you're on a Raspberry Pi and you do hostname -I, it will return the IP address of the Raspberry Pi. Traceroute will return the latency of the specific network. I was actually working with a router recently using traceroute to kind of see if my extender was working, to basically see if the latency improved at all. Ping is used to see if devices are online. It will return packets of how much data has been received through it. And then there's also rsync or SCP, which is part of FTP. So rsync and SCP are the actual commands. FTP is actually standing for File Transfer Protocol, which is basically just the way that files transfer to and from devices. With rsync, you can also throw on a -AZ, which transfers the file compressed and safely and smoothly across different things. So it's mostly about transferring things across like SSH servers. And if you don't know what SSH is, it's secure shell, which is a way to access other servers from your laptop, which is such a cool concept. Other important terms within networking are DNS and DHCP. DNS is domain name system, which basically is standing for the names of devices, so you don't always have to remember IPs. So for instance, maybe I'm trying to make sure my AirPods are online. I know that they don't have Wi-Fi, so this is a horrible example, but say they need to be online to frickin'... This is a terrible example. Let's do a better example. I had Raspberry Pi little microcontrollers. I needed to make sure that they were online and that I can reach them from my laptop. This way I could tell if it's giving me like bad requests or something. I forgot the whole reason I freaking started talking about this was for DNS and DHCP. Instead of remembering that long, crazy digit number, you can do a regular human recognizable term like Raspberry Pi 1, 2, 3, 4. Basically, your machine goes into the etc file system and basically sees this etc config file and basically says, oh, this IP is associated with this domain name system. I know what you're talking about. DHCP is dynamic host protocol configuration, which is basically how routers and Wi-Fi systems and networking systems assign IPs to new devices. So if I just bought an Xbox and I need to put it on the network, I connect it and it basically says, do I give this an IP? I don't know. So those are also configured. Last two things that I have on this list are the Linux file system or the Linux root system, which nobody ever goes to unless you've literally never had a girlfriend or something. So there's a lot going on here and it looks scary at first, but I think that the most important ones are definitely going to be bin, var, etc, and home. So these four, in my opinion, are the most important. Bin stands for all of your binaries. So all those commands that I talked about at the beginning of the video are binaries. So ls is a binary, make directory is a binary. All these commands, they're binaries within, and this is where the code for those binaries sit. They use $path, and that is the way that you are able to execute them throughout the entire machine. etc is filled with all of your configuration files, or it stands for etc, but most of your configurations and how your computer does certain things, that's all going to be within this file. Var is going to be your logs. Like I said before, if you want to do you wanted to print the logs out in live time, this is great for debugging or if your system or machine has an issue. And then home is a user-based directory. So I have a home. Everybody in the server has a home. Oh, bashrc and bash profile. Now, these things are interesting because you can create a thing called bash aliases. I made an alias called chess, and essentially what the alias of chess does is runs a command to open up chess.com. But anyways, guys, I hope that you guys at least got 1 to 2 things out of this. And if someone's inspired by just watching one of these videos, that's all I'm out here to do, to be honest. I hope you guys enjoyed, but I've been having a ball filming these videos for you guys. If you stayed to the end, you're an absolute stud. I'll see ya in the next one. Peace. Life would be a dream if I could take you up paradise up above.